at 1 p.m. And I'll tell you, in these COVID-19 times, I'm really looking forward to it. It's how I connect with the outside world, is this show. And I really do appreciate it. So, okay, this show is indeed the Plant-Based Business Hour. I'm Elysabeth Alfano. Thanks for being with me. So I did this show. I started it originally because I'm concerned that people aren't making the connection between the pandemic that we have now and eating meat. So we have many meat-borne pandemics: mad cow disease, Ebola, Asian bird flu, African swine fever, both of which still going on in China today. So I think what we need to focus on as a society and as business people is a safer food supply. And ultimately, that means a safer future. So on this show, I bring together the consumers and the investors so that they can see the business people who are literally creating a new and safer future for us with plant-based foods. So let me do that today. I'm bringing in the CEO of Stray Dog Capital. Lisa Feria is with me now, joining me from Kansas. Thanks for being with me, Lisa.
Thanks for having me. Hello, everybody.
So I super appreciate all you do. You're a wealth of knowledge, and you have been such an instrument of change in the plant-based movement. Just let me ask you some basic questions. The last time you and I saw each other, which would have been September of 2019, the Good Food Institute annual meeting, I sat you down for an interview, and you said, okay, there is just crazy, stupid money out there. Tell me, what did you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really funny because that kind of dumb money was still around exactly a month and a half ago. We were looking at a deal, a pre-revenue company, and really exciting proposal, really exciting team, but still very, very early. And they were able to get a valuation for the company of in the $40 to $50 million range, which is a lot for a pre-revenue company who's just starting out. And that's what I meant by dumb money. I think that in the category had a lot and continues to have a lot of interest. And some of that is long lasting, real believers of the change and transformation that the plant-based cultivated space can bring. And some others were more around opportunistic short-term gains. They saw beyond me. They said, hey, there's money to be had here. Let's just throw a lot of money at the category. And it was causing some issues with entrepreneurs and investors.
How so? What do you mean? Because I would think when there's money out there, everything is great.
Yeah. It's funny because in the venture world, it's not a good thing to have a really high valuation if the company's not really at that level. And that's because the market will adjust eventually. I mean, you've seen that with other public companies that have gone out from a private valuation of billions of dollars. And then once they hit the public market, the valuation goes down because it really wasn't a true measure of the company's value at that time. And in the plant-based world, what's happening is if you have an investor who will be willing to give you a valuation of, $100 million when the company's really should be worth only 20. Once that investor is no longer around in a situation like we're having now, where with COVID, a lot of investors have backed out, then for your next raise, you're having to raise from a benchmark of 100 million. And that just becomes a lot harder for the entrepreneur to do, resulting in the dreaded down round. Even though there is no measure correlating that down round to the company might be a great success, but it wasn't worth $100 million. It really was worth 20. And so, it just creates a really bad situation for entrepreneurs. And for investors, it creates a difficult situation because we always want to be fair to the entrepreneur, and the entrepreneur ideally wants to be fair to the investor. It is a partnership. And if you believe that the company, based on market data, based on IP or team, you believe that the company is worth X, but you have another investor who's offering X plus $1 billion, then it doesn't really create a good starting relationship with the entrepreneur when you're in agreement as to what is the company value.
It's interesting that you say that, because I would think that you'd just be open to any kind of money. And I'm sure people are open to that kind of money. But I see the problem of, if you set the bar really high, then in these sort of panic times, we'll say, of course, the money's not there. But the money's not there for a lot of things right now. So it's not indicative of plant-based issues. It's just indicative of, COVID-19 and where we are. Although the stock market has been coming back, and but the recession and all of the impact from businesses being out of work and really shut down is yet to be seen. So I'm not going to say that we don't have rocky times ahead. It's interesting to me. I don't know if you could give us a percentage, but I'm curious how many of the investors are really in it to be impact investors. So are really in it for the long-term change. And what percentage is just like, I heard of Beyond Meat, I want to get in.
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I'm seeing, there's no hard and fast percentage, but I can say that in the past couple of companies that we've been taking a look at, we've seen from where we were a month ago to even now, we've seen about 20-ish% to 30%, a third of the investors just disappear. And it could be a situation where they're becoming tougher on the companies that they're investing, more selective. It could be a situation where they decided that they want to hold to money and not really invest it at this point until they know what's going on. For us, we're a mission-based investment fund. We're a change driving investment fund. So we're in this for the long run. We're in here to help our portfolio companies succeed and the marketplace ideally succeed by funding and helping amazing entrepreneurs and companies bring those products to market. And that's relevant no matter what the time. I would argue that now is even more relevant than ever. But that's not the approach of all the investors, especially if you're an investor in this category more opportunistically.
So this to me is strange, and I'll say slightly disappointing, because I would have hoped that the impact investors, they're going to stay regardless, and they're going to double down because they know that these meat-borne pandemics are very bad for our wallet. I think we're all seeing that as no one has a job right now. So, but the opportunistic ones, I was hoping they were going to make the connection as well, that they were going to say, we need a safer, more stable, more secure, more reliable food supply. And I want to get in on that because it's a gazillion-dollar business. If meat is $1.4 trillion globally, meat and dairy together makes that even larger. You would think that they would want to be a part of the future, but are you telling me they're not making that connection?
I think what's happening is that from an investment standpoint, technology investments, in many ways, healthcare investments tend to be a faster turnaround businesses, just because you can scale from 0 to a million a lot quicker. For a food investment, in order for that company to go from the farmer's market to distribution at Walmart, there are a lot of steps and time and physical product that needs to go from here to there and things that need to happen in order for that to ramp up. And you need patience. They're not the same businesses. And even though the percent return on investment might be great for one versus the other, you still need to understand that it will take a little bit longer. And if you don't have an appetite for being patient as it relates to all those things, then you're less likely to want to invest in food businesses, not only the plant-based, but any type of food business. And many of them make the connection, but these are not entrepreneurs, or these are not investors who are investing in this space because of the connection. They're investing in this space because they see an opportunity. But if there's a shinier opportunity over here, they're going to go do that.
I see. It's interesting because I would love to have you back in, let's say, 6 months' time when we hopefully have COVID behind us, because I would argue, yes, this is the food space, but I would argue that this is also the tech space. This is the veg tech space, and it's a biotech space. So I would argue that investors could be missing the boat here, because I think this is going to scale very quickly. Yes, I think there's a lot of tech in this, and it's going to scale very quickly. Well, so one of the very fun things about your job, as you said, Stray Dog Capital has a portfolio of many companies. So you get to hear out all the entrepreneurs and their great ideas, and then ultimately help the funding come to some of them from outside sources, and also you Stray Dog as well. So you get to see what we won't see in the marketplace for 3-4 years to come. So I don't know, can you tell us what's the next big thing?
Yeah. So to the excitement of vegans, vegetarians everywhere, there's a lot of bacon coming, a lot of bacon.
About time, people.
There's fungi bacon. There's all kinds of seed-based protein bacon, plant-based mixed bacon. A lot of companies are looking into bacon right now. And as a matter of fact, we just made an investment in one called At Last, who is making bacon. And we all agree that bacon is a huge category in need of disruption for sure, but also in need of fantastic options. And a lot of companies have agreed. And so you're going to see probably next year. It was at the end of this year, maybe, but more likely at the beginning of next year, you're going to see a lot more bacon, plant-based bacon hit the shelves in multiple different iterations of that are a lot closer to animal-based bacon, as opposed to a plant-based bacon that's called bacon, but doesn't in any way replace it. These are things that sizzle. They're things that you look like bacon. I mean, just really amazing products. And then the other piece is seafood. Seafood has gone into a transformation from a research and development standpoint in the past year. Incredible. I mean, what was only a couple of players that tasted, in my opinion, okay or bad, to incredible, very close to mimicking the seafood counterpart products, most of them in plant-based. And so you have a lot of company, Gathered Foods is a good example. Ocean Hugger is a good example. A lot of other companies who are coming to do more plant-based mimicry of seafood products. And I'm really excited to see that category disrupted.
I am too, because where we see meat consumption down in Western Europe and the United States, it's up about 2% globally because of the wealth happening in India and China. But that's nothing compared to the numbers for seafood, which is largely on the rise. Asia has been dependent on seafood for decades. It's what they know. It's what they rely on. So their communities, just like ours, are growing. The planet's growing. We're going from 7 billion people to 10, almost 11 billion people. So the demand for seafood is increasing at an incredible rate. And we've already emptied the oceans. It's not like we will empty the ocean. We have already done that. And, tested the carrying capacity of the ocean something like 6 to 7 times over. I've interviewed National Geographic reporters, and that's what they've told me. Paul Nicklin, the famed photographer, said that 5 years ago, that we had taken the ocean 7 times past its capacity. So seafood is like, please help us, emergency.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think what's happening too is people are realizing the animal based products are bad for you, beef and all, they have all kinds of negative health repercussions. And so that's a good side. The downside is a lot of those people are then saying, fine, I'll just eat fish or any other type of seafood product. It's considered healthier, better for you. And so we're seeing the aquaculture world go up in terms of how many consumers are eating it. And so we believe that there's going to be a huge opportunity from a seafood standpoint.
Yes, I'm very excited about that. Ocean Hugger, cannot wait to get my hands on some of that. Of course, I've had Good Catch, which is I've loved, plant-based tuna, basically, which I've loved. I'm no doctor. I will say that seafood is not better for you, but I'm going to direct you to Dr. Barnard and Dr. Greger. Please just Google Dr. Greger, Dr. Barnard, and is seafood good for you? Is eating fish good for you? And you will get your answer right there. So now I worry a little bit about bacon. I have to be honest. People want bacon to succeed so much. I'm wondering if you're just going to get like crazy stupid bacon. We started the show with crazy stupid money, and now is it like crazy stupid bacon? Like every entrepreneur sees like that's the ticket. And are they all real? Like, tell me about the bacon landscape to come.
Yeah. I think we're going to see an influx of bacon type products. Some of them amazing, some of them not so great, but trying to fill the category with options, right?
Will they all get funded?
I would have said 2 months ago, most of them will get funded because there's so much appetite for bacon and interest in bacon. But now I think what's going to happen is that the best ones will get funded. The ones with the strongest teams, with more experience, with a more developed product. For example, for us, we're not just desperate to get any bacon on the market. We want to get a bacon that will be the Impossible Foods Beyond Meat of bacon, something that really you can give your meat eating friends and say, hey, try this, and that they're going to be like wide-eyed and like, what is this? This is amazing. And so that's what we're trying to help bring to market. But there's enough bacon options that you're going to see more than one option out there.
I'm so excited about this for so many reasons. First of all, I'm so tired of people online saying like, oh, but I couldn't give up bacon, because it's just, please that's like saying I can't give up carcinogens. I can't give up heart attacks. I can't give up high blood pressure and obesity. I don't know. Okay. So I'm a little bit flippant there, but I'm very tired of that response. And then also pigs are such incredibly smart animals, much smarter than dogs. And the abuse of pigs and the disease running rampant in factory pig
Right.
farming, which, to be clear, is like 99.99% of the only pig farming that exists. China's
Right.
dependence on these huge factory farms, where they are currently decimating, killing at least 1/3 of their pig population. We're talking about 1 million pigs. I've read buried alive. I will have to confirm that, but killed because of African swine fever.
Yeah.
Worried about that going from pigs to humans, because newsflash, pandemics are meat from, most of them are from meat borne issues. So China has that going on right now. So bacon is a huge arena that needs to be solved. So I look to
Right.
you to solve it, Lisa.
Well, we're looking for amazing entrepreneurs,
Yes.
and they're out there. There's a lot of passion and interest out there.
Yes, well, I can't wait. And if anybody needs a taste tester, here I am. Well, so
Noted.
you work with so many entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
Tell me if there's a particular skill set you need to see before you'll
Mm.
fund anyone. And the part 2 of that question is, what tips do you give to people when they pitch so that they can be successful? Because most people must be nervous and maybe not have experience with this.
Yeah, I think the number one characteristic that I look for when I speak to entrepreneurs is grit.
Oh,
Literally grit,
like
because what I
scrappy?
see, yeah, definitely. So I see a lot of entrepreneurs who have an expertise, a fantastic expertise in something. It might be science, it might be business, it might be financials. They're just really good at something, and they have partnered with somebody else, their co-founder, who might be good at the alternative other skills. It might be R&D, etc. But if the founders or founder don't have enough grit, they will flounder at the first bump in the road. And we have seen so many examples of this, where they're really amazing, smart, talented human beings, but there's nothing that is more sure in the entrepreneurial world than you will have to pivot at some point. You know, you had an account, it fell apart. You had a product, it didn't work. You had a supply chain that was not making it to you anymore. And you have to pivot. You have to bring out a different product. You have to move to an e-commerce. This is a wonderful example of companies who use this as an opportunity to build more sustainable companies. Those are the ones that are going to make it, right? And so what I've seen is that these entrepreneurs who are able to come to you and say, okay, investor, here's the 5 things I need right now. I need an expert in food service, which I'm telling you this exact example because somebody just called me to tell me this. I need a company who's really good in consulting and e-commerce. I need an introduction to a celebrity-based fund. Like, put me to work. That's what I'm here to do.
That's great.
Right? But most of them don't really have the connection to say, okay, after you give me money, then, you know, I'm not going to use you. But if you have enough grit and persistence, you will use every single one of your resources fully.
Oh, that's wonderful. So you're saying there's really a relationship. It's not just give me your money and let me move on.
Absolutely. Definitely. It should be. Yeah.
It should be. Sure, because they're a resource. Absolutely. And they have connections, I would be guessing. Is there a certain sort of personality for the entrepreneur?
Yeah. You know, I really like, and this is a tough one because when I answer this question, it's taken one or two ways. So I really like people who can present an inspiring vision that will encourage and excite others to join them, right? Somebody who can come to me and say, Lisa, I'm asking for you and Straight Out Capital to give us $1 million. And here's what I'm going to do with it. But in an ideal world, if you gave me $10 million, here's what I would do with that. And here's how how I think this company is going to develop itself from a family market to all the way to being the next $1 billion company. And they have this beautiful long-term vision. You know, to my previous point, doesn't mean that story is not going to change, because it will, but they can really enroll you and excite you. And, you know, when you hear somebody who has such a clear vision, all you want to do is grab an oar and, you know, row with them, because you want to help them get to that vision. And that's the exact same way that they hire talented people. Talented people don't come cheap. They shouldn't. Otherwise, they're not particularly talented. If you have somebody who's best in class, you will have to pay like a large amount of money or shares or something for them. And the only way to get them to join you versus joining a bunch of other public and private companies is to be able to enroll them in this vision of greater than life company that you're creating.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean that I like people who can talk and have nothing but smoke behind them. Those are two different things for me. I do want somebody who has a vision, but somebody who can execute well is very important.
Oh gosh.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So key. I always find, I'm on my third business or something, and I always tell people in my experience, it's not who's the smartest, it's not who's the most talented, it's not who's the prettiest or, best looking. It's usually people who are willing to work the hardest. So I would include scrappy in that, and people who can make their money last the longest.
Oh yeah,
who could
especially during now,
right? So who could have foreseen
right
COVID? And you just never know what's coming up, and so you can't keep your money so to the thin margin. You just really have to be scrappy, as you say. I love that. Do you see often that the exit strategy for the entrepreneur is to sell to the big meat and dairy company? And this is such a tricky question, I think, because so many people would like to say, I want these little companies to succeed, like Beyond Meat basically has done, without the help of, they haven't been acquired by, so I think it's Silk and So Delicious were acquired by Dannon, and Maple Leaf acquired Light Life and Field Roast, Maple Leaf being a Canadian meat company. So, what is your feeling about the exit strategy to sell to meat and dairy?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the companies that we speak to, and I'm talking specifically about cultivated meat or clean meat, cellular meat, however you want to call it, their strategy is to sell to a meat manufacturer or producer. Because what we see is that these companies, Tyson, Cargill, if you've been paying attention in the past 2 or 3 years, they've changed their strategies to be a protein company. In the example of Tyson, they produce their own plant-based lines, and rooted and raised, I think it's called.
Oh yes, but isn't that a blended product?
It is. Some of it is blended, some of it is completely plant-based. And so even these companies are starting to develop expertise in the plant-based direction. They want to offer proteins of any kind. And so a lot of these companies want to be either the licensee, so they want to license their manufacturing or their product production to the larger companies, or they want to become that. And so you might just grab a bunch of different smaller companies and plug them into a large production, meat production facility or company, and then they use their distribution networks to then, go to every supermarket that they're already in. And from an impact to the market, I can't even imagine how fast and how wide this can get to, because you have these gigantic companies who already have done the work of getting into every grocery store and chain and, club and so if they can use their might to get these plant-based products on the market and give access to, every single person in the US, at least, if not internationally, that's a huge win. And so a lot of these companies, that's part of their plan, is to sell to these larger companies to then be able to achieve the market disruption, ironically, that they want.
I know what you're saying. And I actually think, even though my initial reaction at first was like, gosh, the industry that created the problem is now getting the props for fixing the problem after lots of damage has been done, and they're kind of even late to the game. That said, I do recognize that their deep pockets and their large distribution channels are really necessary if you want to focus on your eye on the prize, which is change rapidly. And so to have to recreate all these distribution channels would be inefficient and not time effective. So you really do want these companies to hop on quickly, start shifting their products so that they make more plant-based products, and so that they advertise more plant-based products. And so it is this relationship that needs to kind of work together, as hard as that might be. I'll say that Tyson is big in seafood now because they missed the boat. Tyson didn't say that, wow, what a colossal mistake. So they had been investing in Beyond Meat super early, right before Beyond Meat went to IPO, with the weirdest time to back out. They backed out of Beyond Meat, and they're still kicking themselves, of course, but they got into seafood. And I think that's a very
Yeah. And
interesting thing.
our intention obviously is to disrupt the animal agriculture and to transform the food system. So we are eating plants and we're eating cultivated meat and all that. And I think these companies, they're in the business of making money. So if the plant-based version or their plant-based part of their business starts making more money than anything else, where do you think their resources and time and attention and focus and marketing dollars are going to go?
Yes.
And by the way, that is where the consumer is heading anyway. Generation Z, millennials, all of them are heading in that direction anyway. So they either focus on having a competitive product in that area and growing it, or they're going to be left behind. Somebody else is going to be able to take that from them. And we've seen that in the market. They're very aggressive towards heading in that direction. And to me, one more plant-based burger that they sell and one less, chicken wing that they sell, that's the transformation we're looking for. We're looking to move this over here. But we cannot lose sight of the fact that they have such magnificent logistical and distribution networks that if we can get our plant-based companies, cultivated meat companies, et cetera, to leverage that, the impact would be gigantic.
Yeah. And Michelle Alfano says, and vegan products are expensive. That's my sister.
Hi, Michelle.
So, it's true. The more companies that come in and the more products we have, the more price is going to come down because you're going to be scaling up. And that is a huge concern because if you want, all of America and all of the world to get on board, it has to be, as the Good Food Institute says, it's got to be taste, convenience, and price. So the taste we think is there. Convenience, these distribution channels got to get it out to as many places as possible. And then that price has got to come down. And that's all happening. In fact, I'll say I've got sort of a fun anecdotal story. I was hiking in Bhutan and there weren't many Americans. And I ran into an American who was working in a high-level engineering at Kargil in Thailand. So we started hiking together on the path and having this off-the-record kind of conversation. And he said, it used to be 5 years ago, if you wanted to get Kargil to fund any of your research projects, you'd have to go through this long, arduous process. Now, if you mention the word sustainability, you get funded right away. We've changed our name, Kargil. We've changed our name from a meat company to a protein company. We are on board with making food. And if that food is a veggie burger in India, which is what they were working on at the time for McDonald's, then we make veggie burgers for India. They had gotten out of cow farming altogether. They had doubled down on chicken farming. And that was his job, to make chickens more efficient in factories. But I will just say, for those out there, that's a bad business equation as well. Animal agriculture is not a good business equation. So if you cut down trees to grow grain, which has fiber and protein, are we feeding that grain to people? No, we're feeding it to chickens or pigs or cows. And then you have to give them water, give them land, give them time, plump them with hormones, pump them with antibiotics, and at best with a chicken. And that's going to be your best economic equation. According to the World Resources Institute, you're going to get 1 calorie from the 9 grains you put in. It's a bad business equation, no matter what that engineer wants to do in Thailand.
That's right. Yeah. And I want to address this comment that Sarah Siegel, hopefully I didn't mispronounce your name,
Sarah.
Mentioned, because that is a really good point. So one of the reasons why meat is so cheap is because the government subsidizes it to a large amount. And so this is another reason why we need these big incumbents on our side and selling products that are plant-based and cultivated. Because guess what happens if a large part of Cargill's business or Tysons' business becomes plant-based? They're going to be using their lobbying and power and muscle to help the plant-based world also get some of those subsidies and be included into that. Right now, GFI and other plant-based organizations,
Good Food Institute,
are trying to get our lobbyists and their lobbyists to get into these subsidies, but it's really difficult, right? But if you have a very influential, large incumbent making that progress for the category, you can get very quick, very far. And I aspire, and I hope we all aspire to a future where the plant-based products are subsidized to the point that we can get to where they should be, which is cheaper than the meat-based alternative.
Yes, absolutely. Because first of all, why are we subsidizing at all, because I thought we were
Mhm.
based on just, competitive businesses being competitive. But also, why are we subsidizing things that make people sick? And then we have to
Mhm.
subsidize healthcare because
Right.
we've basically made people sick.
Right.
So we're back to bad economic equations. Before I get into a couple of personal questions for you that I'm just
Sure.
curious your take on, what is your professional business take on the blended product? I'm not a fan. Maybe you can help me come around.
Yeah, we don't. So Straight Up Capital doesn't invest in blended products. We really believe that the
Okay.
future is going to be plant-based and cultivated meat. So let me adjust my answer. We will invest in the blended products when the meat-based part is made out of cultivated or cell-based meat.
Oh, great.
But if
I
it
get you.
comes, yeah, yeah. So we believe that there is a future that includes healthier products and that are made in a sustainable way, the whole thing.
Hmm.
And so we focus on getting those plant-based products and those cultivated meat products out there and helping them ideally achieve the price point where that they need to be at in order to be competitive. And for the moment, we're focusing on those other categories that need our attention and our resources.
Hmm. Yes. So I believe that Tyson is coming out with a blended product. And for sure, the product that
Mhm.
sticks in my mind is Purdue has a blended product, which is part vegetables, part chicken. And I think their advertising behind it, or their campaign slogan behind it, is now you can get your kids to eat their vegetables. So they're trying to kind of hedge their bets, I think, see
Mhm.
where the market's going, keep a toe in on both sides. Again, I'm personally not a fan, but I will say this, and I'd love your opinion, Lisa. I understand that meat and
Mhm.
dairy run on very thin margins. And so if you were to
Mhm.
decrease how much meat you were selling by 50%, that's not a margin that they could live with and survive. So in a way, taking away 50% is killing the industry. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I mean, we'll need to address it in multiple ways. If
Mm.
we are able to continue scaling up the plant-based products, they will be cheaper. So that's a way. If we can get more government subsidies to be a fair market for plant-based and meat-based, then that will significantly lower the price as
Hmm.
well. And decreased demand for meat for sure
Yes.
will lower the price of plant-based in comparison
Yes.
because the price of meat will be higher. Less scale is higher price.
I think we live in such incredibly exciting times. We are
Yes,
living
indeed.
through a transformation. I do
Mhm.
believe, Lisa, that in your and my
Yeah,
lifetime, we are going to
yeah,
see the shift from meat and dairy, and that our grandkids are going to say, I can't believe they did
I know,
that. That's so
I know.
disgusting. What's wrong with them? That is really what I see. There's the Stray Dog Capital logo. It's a little hard for people to see. I'm gonna pop out. Lisa, I'm not going anywhere. I'm here.
Okay, that's our logo. And you can visit our website as well, www.straightoutcapital.com. Yeah, let's see. Some of these questions are
Um,
amazing.
straydogcapital.com.
Yeah.
Shannon Blair, how the heck are you? In fact, let me thank people for joining. Michelle Alfano, Laura Russell, Gary D.D. Harders, Shannon Blair, Tom Vincel, Laura Russell. I hope I'm not forgetting anyone. Sarah Siegel, I see you again. Thank you for being here. Some folks were in the beginning. I just appreciate everyone tuning in. So, one last business question, and then we'll get to you a little bit personally because I'm so curious. So give it to me now. What are your predictions for the future?
Ooh, I do think that plant-based products are going to get to a point where people prefer their taste because they are
Oh,
evolving so quickly. I think it was about a year and a half ago, I went for a tour of the Impossible Foods facility, and one of the things that Pat Brown said is that they are this close from in a blind test, not only mimicking meat, but being preferred to meat in a
mhm.
blind test, right? And I thought that was incredible. And then I thought, you know what? That's the target that we need to aspire in every category. It shouldn't be we made it to
Right.
meet, to mimic meat and then we're done. It really should be hey, in a blind test, this is actually better. And not only is it better for you from hey, it tastes amazing standpoint, but health, environment, animal, etc. And so I believe that we're going to get there from a plant standpoint. Number two, I do believe that cultivated meat is going to have a big role to play as it relates to other meat production. There are always going to be segments of the population that do not want to consume plant-based products or that just want to consume meat. And so we do need to have products that scratch that itch. And so I'm really excited to see, I mean, over 50 companies who are looking at the cell-based cultivated meat space, and they're looking to advance it. Memphis Meats is a great example. Mosa Meat, Super Meat. There's so many out there right now.
Left and yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Aleph Farms, it's a great example too. And so we'll see cultivated meat really rise and start making it into restaurants and eventually into grocery stores.
Yeah, I
And
think
I
it's
think that,
please.
yeah, I was going to say the impact of Generation Z and millennials. Millennials are already been felt. This is why this market is growing so aggressively, is thanks to those millennials. But Generation Z is coming right behind them, and they're also more plant-based than even the millennials. And so we're going to see a generational shift from a preference standpoint to want these products, and that will continue creating the consumer pull we need so these companies can create these products and have somebody to hand them over to, which is really exciting.
It's so exciting. I agree with you on every front. I'll take a stab and say we're further away with cellular agriculture for sure, but I think it's going to be a hard 5 years. Lots of science still happening there,
Mhm.
but sort of from 5 to 15 years, I think you're going to see that ramp up because governments, which usually don't do much of anything, quite frankly, most change happens because of people. Thank you, vegans, for being out in front. Change happens because of people, and people demand it, and then companies start acting, and it just kind of grows from there. Governments are the last thing to happen, but I think the financial benefits for particularly foreign governments like Singapore, which relies on other people for food, China, which relies on other people for food, the economic benefit to them to make their own food and not have to grow it and not have to import it from other people, which puts them at a distinct trade disadvantage. Can't really negotiate with your trading partner when your trading partner controls all your food. So I think you're going to see foreign governments really get behind that in a big way. So that's kind of my long-term prediction. Let me ask
I think
you.
that's a really good point. So we actually got a call from somebody, a fund in Saudi Arabia, who's aggressively trying to invest in plant-based and cultivated, because I don't know how much you've read of this, but they do a lot of live transports and imports from Australia. It's horrible, horrendous. This is live animal transport. And they obviously don't want that in the future. That's a huge food security issue for them, on top of the horrible animal situation. And so they're looking for other alternatives. And this is an area that they are already investing in, that they want to see grow. And they have a national security vested interest in it. It's not like, in the US is mostly hey, we want to have, a more sustainable food system. We want to treat animals better. We want people to have better health. This is a food security and national safety issue. And so they're really taking it seriously.
I predict the exact same thing: food security and national safety issue. So how can the small person get involved? The person who doesn't have a gazillion dollars, the person who wants to see these things grow, but can only do little bits.
Yeah. So it's a combination of things. I think every person's voice is so, so important. Not only do you vote with your wallet when you go to the grocery store and you buy a plant-based alternative as opposed to something else, that's a huge vote, because then that grocery store will bring more options in the future. When you continue to have a conversation on social media and tell people about this recipe that you made with these products, everybody's looking for ideas, particularly now. From a
shout out to Lunch Break Live on Jane Unchained. I'll have to say, we do that on this station. We do that every day at 12:30.
Must need. I mean, everybody's cooking now, so it's a perfect time. From a legislative standpoint, know who your senators and representatives are and call them. I call them all the time about all kinds of different issues, and they are incredibly polite. I'm like, hey, I disagree with this, or I agree with that, and they really, really listen to their constituents' voice. Don't forget that you have such an important voice. You make sure you're using it. If you are interested in investing, there's a nonprofit called Glasswell Syndicate who aggregates investors that want to invest small checks into the space. So you can reach out to them. So there's a million ways to stay involved doing this, staying informed, and helping drive enthusiasm and purchasing for these companies. I think Beyond Meat is a great example. In the first probably 3 or 4 years of Beyond Meat's existence, the only reason it stayed alive is because of the vegetarians and the vegans that were buying it consistently.
He was
Yeah,
so scrappy.
absolutely. He's a perfect example of
Yeah.
scrappiness. And they were working on amazing things, and they launched those amazing things, which we all know now. But the reason that he made it into the store is because there's so much consumer support for those products. And he's just one example of so many. The vegans and vegetarians really help drive these categories and help them become a springboard to the next, Publix and, Costco and things like that. But first they have to survive in the little, co-op or the little Whole Foods in your neighborhood. So every voice counts, and every voice is very important.
I love that you say this, and we talk about it a lot on this show. So you really do vote with your dollars. So you don't have to wait
Mhm.
4 years to vote. You vote
Yeah,
3 times a day.
absolutely.
Every time you put plant-based items on your plate,
Mhm.
and you are telling them with your dollars that you want different products and you want things to change and you want them to change rapidly. And then, of course, you do have your
Mhm.
own voice. So if you want to find, and it's not just Beyond Meat out there, folks, we mentioned Unreal Deli and No Evil Foods.
Mhm.
If you like No Evil Foods sausage the best, tell your
Yeah.
grocer, hey, how come you're not carrying the best thing out
That's
there?
a great
Use that
example.
voice.
Yeah.
Absolutely use it. And of course, with your politicians, never hold back. You do indeed pay their salaries. So, let them know you have power. You are so incredibly powerful. Governments
Yeah.
do not decide things, people do. They really still do. So use your voice so that will always be the way. So let me tell you, I'm curious, Lisa, when was the moment you knew? Is there a particular moment in time that you remember that you said, that's
Yes.
it, I'm going vegan. There's no turning
Oh,
back for
yeah.
me.
Yeah, I watched the video "Meet Your Meat" that
Oh,
PETA put out. Actually, Bruce Friedrich, funny random story, but Bruce Friedrichs were good friends now, and he
I'll
was
just
he
say
was
shout out. He's the executive director of Good Food Institute and
Mhm.
an incredible force. Please go ahead, Bruce Friedrich.
Yes, and so he was very involved. He was in PETA before, and he was very involved in creating that video. And that was my aha matrix moment. And I watched this video, and I said, "There's no way
Yeah.
that this is happening." This is like 9, 10 years ago. There's no way this is happening. This PETA must have found the one, slaughterhouse that they're treating animals this way. And the more that the information is out there. So the more doors that I opened, the more that I realized, oh my gosh, this is happening. I was living in this bubble of, all animals have a great life and one bad day, as opposed to animals are living a horrendous lives and one good day. It was like a complete change of my realization about what was going on. And I've always been an animal lover my entire life. And so I was like, I wouldn't do this. How could I pay somebody to do it for me? I wouldn't go and do this to an animal. Why would that makes no sense to me. So that was overnight I became vegan
And
or
when was it?
vegetarian. This is about 9 to 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And then it took me like a few more months to start opening the other doors of like, wait a minute, what's going on in the egg space? Oh, geez, that's horrible too. What's going on in the milk space? Like you keep opening all these doors. And then I transitioned to veganism. My husband watched Forks Over Knives, and overnight he became a vegan. He's still vegan. My 2 kids are vegan. Our dogs are vegan. It's a whole family affair.
That's wonderful. I love that story. Yeah, everybody has a moment in time. I used to ask people like,
Yes.
"Oh, when or why?" And okay, they kind of give the general answers. They love animals. They don't want to see the cruelty. But there's always a
Mhm.
moment in time when you just
Definitely.
say, "I draw the line. I won't go
Yeah,
back."
that was it for me.
So when you're having a bad day, and many people recently have had a string of them, so of course my heart and this channel goes out to anyone who's suffering or personally affected by COVID-19 in a health standpoint. Of course, we're all affected by the jobs and the stir craziness at home. If you're having a bad day, is there a phrase or something you tell yourself
Mm.
to get your mind back to like bring yourself back to being onwards?
I That's a great question. I don't have one so I have 2 phrases that I live by. One of them is pull up as you go up, because I have found in
Oh,
my life that
oh, I love
almost
that.
nobody gets where they are by themselves. It's because other people give you opportunities and they pull
Mhm.
you up, and you get entry to different places. And for me, it was this is how the CEO of Straight Out Capital. Somebody gave me an opportunity, and it was the Straight Out Capital founders. And so I really believe in how do I make sure that I'm not the last one coming up the stair? How do I make sure that I'm pulling others up in general? And I say that more on the diversity side, but in anything that we do, we need to pull up as we go up. And for me, I've been training for an Ironman triathlon, complete tangent. And 3 days before I did it, they postponed it. So that was
Oh,
great. But,
sure.
with all this COVID, and I always, whenever I was just having a really hard training or a bad training day, I always kept telling myself that, I'm tough and I'm strong and I'll get through anything. And I
Mhm.
just repeat that to myself whenever I'm facing any difficulties, because we all are tough and we all are strong and we all can get through anything. And we just need to make sure that we are surrounded by amazing people who lift us and pull us up, no
Mhm.
matter if that's in a career or in a mood, or in a situation. And so that's what I believe.
I love that you say this. I love that pull up. What tell me what was it? Don't go up without pulling up? No.
Pull up as you go up.
Pull up as you go up. I'm going to use
Yeah.
that one. I always like to say nose to the grindstone, eyes to the sky, but
Oh, I love that.
I like pull up as you go up. That's
Mhm.
wonderful. Okay, so about you specifically, you. Okay, so you're super busy. You're running around. What's the one go-to meal you can always make? You make it in
Oh gosh.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's so good. What is it?
Well, unsurprisingly, it's rice and beans. Like, I love me some rice, beans, corn. I put a little bit of no evil cut up in it. I love no
Oh,
evil
me too. I love
with
those.
cilantro and salsa, and that makes my day any day of the week.
Yeah, it's so good and so easy and so inexpensive. We've been having a long
Mhm.
conversation about expensive plant-based foods, but of course,
Yes.
the original foods, folks, are whole grains, whole plant-based
Mhm.
foods, vegetables, beans, these things that are so great for
Yeah.
you. I recently interviewed Dan Buettner of
Mhm.
Blue Zones, and he recommends that everybody have 1 cup of beans a day because
Mhm.
that's the people who live the longest. They have at least 1 cup of beans a day and they live 4 to 5 years longer than everyone else. And then Dr. Greger challenged him in an interview I had immediately after
Oh,
with Dr. Greger. And he said, I see your 1 cup of beans a day and I raise you to 1.5 cups. So yeah, I'm just saying,
that's
get your beans
awesome.
in for
They're
sure.
both amazing.
No, they're both amazing. Okay, so we got your meal down, but what's your favorite snack? You're running around. Imagine you can travel on
Yeah.
a plane again. What do you always have in your back pocket?
Yeah, hummus and veggies are
Okay.
my go-to anytime, all the time. Chips and salsa if I'm home. It's not something that I eat I'm from Puerto Rico. It's not something that I ate growing up, but it's just something that I love.
Yeah, so I mean, chips and salsa, how can you go wrong? We
Yeah,
had that last night,
right.
actually. So we,
So delish.
because we find ourselves grazing all day because we're home all day, like practically in our pajamas all day. So we
Yes.
just find ourselves just kind of grazing along. So meal times have gone out the window. Okay, so my
Mhm.
very last question for you: what are we always going to find in your fridge?
Ooh, lots of veggies, unsurprisingly. Lots of non-dairy milks as well, and non-dairy yogurt. So that's how we survive between the four of us, our family. And anything that is related to one of my companies, because I want to continue always to support them. So whether it be all the way to Alpha Foods, which if you haven't tried the burritos, they are insanely good.
Yes.
No Evil Foods, Good Seed Burger. I mean, we vary beyond meat. We vary within our portfolio companies, but we only invest in companies that we really truly believe in and that we're willing to feed our kids every day.
I love that. I love that. I'll add this for you because you are a triathlete. Whether you did the thing or not doesn't matter. You're a
So
triathlete.
close.
Uh, so I sort of like to make the original sports bar at home. So I take a salted cashew
Mm.
and I stick it in a date and sort of the juicier, wetter,
Oh yeah.
better. And it's got fat and
I love
sugar
dates.
and salt and fiber. And it's like the original protein bar. So
Dates
I
are
would have
amazing.
those. Yeah, me too. Dates are so good. And it's also sugary, but lots of fiber. So like
That's a
if
good
I'm
idea.
traveling on a plane, I'll have my date stuffed with cashew and everyone's
Oh.
jealous looking around me like, how much did you pay to get on this flight? Her
I'll need to
dates.
try that out. That sounds amazing. I love both of those ingredients.
Oh my gosh. Lisa Feria, I want to thank you for all that you do for
Thank
really
you.
moving the needle for entrepreneurs so that they can make plant-based foods so that we can have a safer and more stable food supply. If we have not learned anything during COVID-19, my gosh, I hope it is this, that we need to shift from a meat and dairy based economy and world to a
Mhm.
safer and more secure and cruelty-free, but also safer and more secure food supply. And that is plant-based foods. Lisa Feria is the CEO of Stray Dog Capital. Go to www.straydogcapital.com if you want to know more. This interview with her is going to be on my Awesome Vegans podcast. So if you know people who would like this interview, you can forward it to them from there. It's also going to be in about 1 hour on my website, ElysabethAlfano.com, and a snippet will go to LinkedIn. Lisa, it's been wonderful to have you on the Plant-Based Business Hour. I hope that you will come back.
Absolutely. And it's been wonderful to talk to you again. And thank you, everybody. Thank you for your comments and questions.
Thank you, everybody, because remember, together we are taking back our health and the health of the planet. I will see you tomorrow right here with Jeffrey Harris, the CEO of Plant Power Fast Food. How are vegan restaurants staying up and running during this time? Jeffrey's going to tell us. Until then, everybody stay safe and stay home. Bye, everyone.
Bye.